Kaya, hello, my name is Lise, and I'm talking to you from beautiful Noongar country. I give my respects to the Noongar elders, past, present and emerging, and to all Indigenous elders across the world. I'd like to talk to you about ClusterFudging. ClusterFudging is when you have a set period of darkness and you want to try and take as many photographs of different star clusters as possible. Usually using a smart telescope or one with scheduling, like this Dwarf 3. So let's get to it. I can show you how it works with the Dwarf 3. If you have other sort of telescope, I'm sure you can work it out. Let's go take a look. To ClusterFudge, you will need a smart telescope with scheduling capability, like a C-Star or a Dwarf Labs one. I have a couple of Dwarf Lab scopes, so I'll be doing the demo for you with my Dwarf 3. So first up, you can get your Dwarf Lab Telescope app open, but you don't need to connect to your telescope at this point. It's all done in the app. Scroll up on the home page and that will show you the schedule. Select yourself View All, and this will show you your previous schedules and also where you can create your brand new ClusterFudge. Select Create Schedule and name it. You may be creating this ahead of time in a different place, so you can adjust those right here. Now here in Boorloo, we're in the Southern Hemisphere. It's winter, it's solstice, and it's been cloudy and rainy as anything. But we are due a clear night on the 26th, so let's try for that. But remember, ClusterFudging is all about getting as many clusters in the time that is available and having fun familiarising yourself with the night sky across the whole year. So now that we know where and when, we save. And we can see our schedule is all ready to be populated. Just a note here for us Dwarf users, here's where you select for Dwarf 2 or 3. It can be either. I'll be using the 3 for this. You can also see that it helpfully tells us when the sun sets on the chosen date. And of course, we scroll right the way down when Sol greets us again. You can add items from here directly by selecting the plus sign and inputting coordinates from Star Safari or Telescopius, but we're going to populate this by using the Star Atlas in the Dwarf app. So we're back to the home page and select the Atlas. Here we are in the Dwarf Labs Star Atlas, and the first thing I want to do is to change the date to match the ClusterFudge. You can see it down on the right hand bottom corner. It brings up a calendar and you can select what you need. It's really good to be able to do this level of preparation in advance, a lot more relaxed. You just have to make sure that you do sync up your schedule and set up about 20 minutes beforehand at the actual time of your event. That's very important, otherwise the whole thing won't happen. You can adjust both the date and the time, which is handy for hunting down clusters and where they're going to be through the night. You'll see that the clock now warns us that the time is not current. I'll just be swiping across a bit, bear with me, because where I'll be shooting from, the most unimpeded view is to the east. Dooby-dooby-doo. Nearly there. And here we are. Okay, so good old Sagittarius is rising in the early evening, and it's even got a bunch of potential targets ready for us. Messier 22 is actually an LCF object. It's LCF 44G. So let's take a look. It looks like a great target for this. See how it's going to be above the 30-degree line throughout most of the evening. Above 30 degrees is going to be good for less atmospheric interference and also less trees and buildings in the way where we are. So now we decide where we want to put this object in our ClusterFudge. You don't have to put them in order. You can slot them in anywhere. As most clusters are pretty bright, you can try for 40 minutes or possibly even half an hour after sunset as your start point. You can adjust the shutter, the gain and the filter, which I'll show you in just a tick. There we are. But honestly, that takes a lot of time, and cluster fudges are all about the speed and ease of setup. Clusters are going to be bright enough, typically, to show up just fine in the minimum 10-minute exposure, with the settings just as they are. Bring that down to 10 minutes, which is the minimum. Doing it with the mouse is tricky. I just thought it would be clearer, you see. So it's a little bit slippery. Let's whack it in just there. Right, done. Save that. Lets you know it's a globular cluster. I'm just going to point out some of the iconography here because it's made cluster fudging a lot easier for me. The symbol for a globular cluster is a solid line circle with a cross through it. A lot like the signs in Susan Cooper's Dark is Rising sequence. The symbol for an open cluster, yeah, there's another globular, and that's not what we're after. Aha! Yes, here we are at Messier 25, also known as LCF 84O. See, that's a dotted line circle showing us it's an open cluster. So let's go back to our schedule. And we can see that the previous object is there in pink. So we don't want to put it there in the schedule. So maybe earlier, because it's all about packing them in. Whee! There. Another 10 minutes. Looks good. Save. And right, what else can we add? Let's have a little look around, zoom out a bit. Messier 18. You can add that. I'm edging towards earlier in the evening now, closer to sunset, because I want to pack in as many as I can. Fairly simple now. And as you start filling in, you might like to start advancing the atlas's time so as to reflect the time of night you're trying to fill in. Now, I don't think you need to watch the entire schedule being filled. We'll cut to the end and see how it looks. Now, you might have proudly assembled your ClusterFudge. And given it a bit of a look over. Yes, that looks all okay. Very good, very good. But wait, what's this? We've got a duplicate. We don't want duplicates, we want as many as possible. So you're probably wanting to remove one of those M23s. Are there any other duplicates lurking around? No. So there it is, and that's when it occurs. Cancel that, and you can simply remove the offending article by pressing and holding over it and then selecting delete when it comes up. It'll ask for confirmation, and there you go. Now you've got a gap, but you can simply go in and find something else and put that into your gap. And it's as simple as that. So now it's time to look at the finished product. I've got 38 objects in there, which I think is pretty good going. Don't forget to synchronise your plan with your scope about 20 minutes before you're ready to go. And make sure your atlas is back on the current date. So scrolling up and down, looking for any duplicates. Tell me if you see any. But no, I think that's looking okay. Those gaps are just artifacts. Yep, 38 clusters all ready to be photographed. Good luck everyone, and clear skies. So there we go. You should all be set up, and just some things to remember. The Dwarf 3 closes itself up when it's done, so it's protected from the sun when it rises. But if you've got a Dwarf 2, it won't do that. So you might want to target something in the west as your final photograph, so the sun doesn't get in and destroy your telescope. Other things to remember is if you're doing an extended ClusterFudge, you will want to plug in some source of external power so you don't run out halfway through, especially with the Dwarf 2. It doesn't have as much battery oomph as the 3, but it's still a perfectly good telescope. Your mileage may vary for your sort of telescope. The other thing is make sure that you've reverted your atlas to the current date, and most important of all, make sure you sync up your schedule at least 20 minutes beforehand to be sure. Get yourself nicely set up. You don't need to go into a polar alignment. It's not spending enough time on each target for it to matter. It's all about the speed. So good luck. Hope you had fun. I'd love to see how your ClusterFudges go. and I'll let you know how I go tomorrow. Clear skies, everyone, and bye for now.